AITA for calling off the wedding when my fiancée demanded I sign my house over to her parents? I am a 33-year-old man, and I have been working hard in consulting for 10 years. I started with nothing, literally sleeping on my parents' couch, living on peanut butter sandwiches, and cold calling companies in cheap thrift store suits. The first year, I made $18,000. By the third year, I had my own apartment and a steady stream of clients. Today, I run a solid six-figure consulting business. No partners, no boss, no debt. With this stability, I started investing in real estate. I bought my first house 3 years ago. I paid it off quickly, then acquired a fixer-upper on my street that I put up for rent. Now, I earn passive income while the value increases. That was when I met Nevada, 32, at a networking event. She stood out. She was intelligent, independent, with her own career and her own life. We hit it off very quickly. After 6 months, we practically lived together. After 2.5 years, I proposed to her. She was thrilled. We set the date for 8 months later, which seemed like plenty of time to organize everything properly without rushing. In hindsight, that is when the first cracks began to appear. But at the time, I thought I had found the right person. Someone who understood me, who appreciated what I had built, who wanted to be a partner rather than a dependent. My God, I was so wrong. The first red flag should have been her proposal to open a joint account specifically for wedding expenses. On paper, it made sense. Everyone contributes. We pay vendors from a single account. Everything stays organized. I thought it was good financial planning, especially since Nevada worked in marketing and was good with details. I put in $25,000 to start, which was generous but not catastrophic for me. Nevada added $8,000 from her savings. The plan was simple. Down payments for the venue, caterer, photographer, flowers, and everything needed for a standard wedding would come out of this account. We would each add money as needed, but the initial $33,000 was supposed to cover most of the big expenses. This is where it gets interesting. Nevada took the debit card, saying she would handle most of the payments to vendors since she was doing the bulk of the planning. That suited me. I hate dealing with wedding vendors anyway. I preferred to focus on work and let her manage the details. The first month, everything on the statement seemed normal. $2,500 for the venue deposit, $800 for the photographer, $400 for the florist. Standard expenses we had already discussed and approved. I didn't pay too much attention to the small amounts because I trusted her. Then I started noticing weird things when looking at the monthly statement. There was a charge of $320 at a place called Bella Boutique that I didn't recognize. When I asked Nevada, she said it was for wedding shoes. Okay, fine. Apparently, brides need special shoes. Then, a charge of $275 at a nail salon. I was starting to think this girl had expensive tastes, but I wasn't going to be the guy arguing over wedding prep expenses. Most of my married friends had told me to just sign the checks and stay out of the details. Happy wife, happy life, and all that nonsense. The real shock came when I saw a charge of $1,200 at a fancy spa. That seemed huge for whatever brides do at a spa. So, I brought it up during dinner. "Oh, that's for my bachelorette party," Nevada said, cutting her chicken as if it were nothing. "The girls and I did a spa weekend instead of the typical Vegas thing. Much classier." I nearly choked on my food. "You're funding your entire bachelorette party with our wedding account." "It's wedding related," she replied defensively. That logic made no sense to me. A bachelorette party isn't a wedding expense. It's a personal party. The breaking point came when I saw several hotel charges totaling $1,400, all for the same weekend, the weekend of our wedding. When I added it all up and asked her for an explanation, Nevada looked at me like I was being petty. "It's for my family's hotel rooms," she said. "My parents, my sisters, my Aunt Carol, and my cousin Lisa. They are all coming from far away for the wedding. Nevada, we specifically talked about this. We agreed that each family would handle their own travel and accommodation costs." "That was before I really thought about it," she replied. "My family isn't as financially comfortable as yours. They shouldn't have to stress about hotel costs during our special weekend. Your parents can pay for their own room." Yes, my parents could afford it because they make good financial decisions and live within their means. Nevada's parents couldn't because they lease cars they can't afford and go on cruises on credit. But apparently, saying that would make me the bad guy. "You only get married once," Nevada said when I insisted. "Why not do it right? Why not ensure that everyone we love can be there without worrying about money? That phrase, "you only get married once," became her justification for everything. Upgraded flowers because you only get married once. Professional hair and makeup for the 4 bridesmaids because you only get married once. Meanwhile, Nevada hadn't added a single extra dime to the joint account since her initial $8,000. She was spending like we were millionaires while contributing nothing more to cover the overages. Effectively, I was funding her entire family's wedding vacation while she acted like it was a joint decision. The joint account balance kept dropping. $28,000, $25,000, $22,000. At that rate, we were going to burn through everything before even getting to the big vendors like the caterer and the band. But every time I raised the issue of expenses, Nevada became emotional and said I was stressing her out during an already overwhelming time. I know I should have stopped this right away. I should have had a real conversation about the budget and boundaries, but I told myself it was just wedding stress and that everything would go back to normal once we were married. I thought I could absorb the extra costs if it avoided conflict during an already tense period. The biggest mistake I could have made, because what I took for simple wedding-related excesses was actually Nevada showing me exactly who she was. And the real test was yet to come. About 6 weeks before the wedding, Nevada and I were having one of our Sunday morning planning sessions. We had developed this routine where we sat at my kitchen table with coffee and wedding binders, reviewing vendor confirmations and guest RSVPs. Pretty normal stuff for a couple, even if these sessions sometimes turned into arguments over her latest expensive ideas. That particular Sunday, everything seemed calm. We had just finished updating the final guest count to 147 people, which was about 20 more than we had originally planned because Nevada kept adding distant relatives and colleagues. I was internally calculating what that would do to the catering cost when she brought up something completely unexpected. "I've been thinking about the wedding gift," she said without looking up from her phone, where she was scrolling through a wedding planning app. "Not the gifts on the registry for the guests, but what we are going to give our families." I was still focused on the guest list calculations, trying to see if we needed to rent extra tables. "What do you mean? Thank you gifts for the parents." "Sort of, but more important than that." She put down her phone and gave me that look she had when she was about to say something serious. "Your parents are quite comfortable financially. They don't really need anything material from us." That was true. My parents are both retired teachers with good pensions. They own their home, and they go on nice vacations every year. They aren't rich, but they are financially secure and lack nothing. "But my parents are in a different situation," Nevada continued. "They've been stuck in the same rental apartment for like 15 years. They never managed to save enough for a down payment because the rent keeps going up, and they had credit problems a few years ago." That was also true. Nevada's parents live in a decent 2-bedroom apartment, but they throw away $1,400 a month on rent without building any equity. Her father works in an auto parts store, and her mother does part-time administrative work for a dentist. They're nice people, but they make questionable financial decisions. Always car payments, expensive vacations they can't really afford, that kind of thing. "Okay," I said, still not seeing where she was going with this. "What are you thinking?" Nevada leaned forward over the table, becoming more animated. "What if we gave them something that would really change their lives? Something meaningful that shows how much we appreciate everything they've done for us?" The way she brought up the subject made me nervous. "Like what?" "The house on Maple Street." I literally stopped breathing for a second. I just stared at her to see if she was joking. She wasn't. "You want me to give my rental property to your parents?" "Think logically," she said, as if she were presenting a business plan. "You don't even live there. It's just sitting there generating rental income while my parents struggle with rising rents. It would solve their housing problems permanently." I put down my coffee mug and really looked at her. "Nevada, that house is worth almost $300,000. You're asking me to give a $300,000 wedding gift to your parents." She waved her hand dismissively. "It's not like you're losing $300,000. You're just transferring an asset to the family. The house still exists. It would simply belong to people who actually need it." The casual way she said that was almost insulting, as if I were the one being difficult by thinking about the financial consequences of giving away a house. "I bought that property as an investment," I said, trying to stay calm. "It generates $1,800 a month in rent. That's over $20,000 a year. Why would I just give that away? Because we are about to get married, she replied, her tone sharper. Because marriage means sometimes putting your spouse's family needs before your own financial interests. Because it would mean the world to me. And what would you give to my family in return? What would be the equivalent on your side? She looked at me as if I had just asked the stupidest question in the world. Your parents don't need anything. They are already comfortable. That's not the point. You are asking me to make a huge financial sacrifice without offering anything comparable on your end. I offer you my love and commitment, she said. I offer to build a life with you. Isn't that more important than some rental income? The manipulation was so flagrant it was almost insulting. She was trying to turn this into a relationship issue when it was clearly about money and entitlement. Nevada, I am not giving my house to your parents. The change on her face was immediate, like a switch had been flipped. The sweet, calm Nevada disappeared, replaced by someone harder, colder. That hint of arrogance crept into her voice as she spoke about my second property as if it were simply waiting to be given away. She wasn't even trying to sugarcoat things anymore. In her mind, owning 2 houses meant that one of them was destined to be given away, specifically to her parents. There was no acknowledgement of how far I had come to get there. No appreciation for the years I spent grinding while she was still finding her way. Just the idea that what I had built should now be redistributed to prove my loyalty. When I stood firm, her bitterness surfaced at full speed. Suddenly, I was the bad guy, selfish and ungrateful. She acted as if I were turning my back on the very people who had supposedly supported us, turning the situation into some kind of twisted moral test. For her, refusing to hand over a $300,000 asset wasn't a matter of boundaries. It was a personal insult. Then came the manipulation. She stopped pacing, fixed me with a look mixing disappointment and threat, and said something that turned my stomach. She put love on the table as a bargaining chip, as if refusing this plan meant I didn't really love her. And at that moment, I understood exactly who I was engaged to. Someone who measured love by how much I was willing to sacrifice, not by mutual respect or trust. For her, giving away something I had worked years for wasn't unreasonable. It was expected. Anything less meant I was disappointing her. The silence that followed was heavy. We just looked at each other from opposite sides of my kitchen table, and I could see she realized I wasn't going to give in to her demands. Fine, she finally said, grabbing her bag and keys. I'm going to stay at my parents' until you get your head straight about what marriage really means. She headed for the door, then turned around after a dramatic pause. Call me when you're ready to be a real partner instead of a selfish landlord. The front door slammed behind her, and suddenly my house became silent again. I sat there for a moment trying to understand what had just happened. My fiancée had just demanded that I give a $300,000 house to her parents as a wedding gift, then left furious when I refused. The craziest part? She seemed genuinely shocked that I said no, as if she expected me to hand over my property without the slightest hesitation, as if it were a reasonable request and not something completely delusional. That's when I started wondering what other expectations she had regarding my assets after the wedding. And that's when I decided I needed to dig a little deeper. Nevada stayed at her parents for 2 days without calling or texting. Honestly, it was the most peaceful my house had been in months. No wedding stress, no arguments over vendor costs, no dramatic sighs when I had to take work calls. Just me, my routine, and finally a real moment of peace and quiet to think. Tuesday morning around 9 a.m., my phone finally rang. Nevada's name appeared on my phone, and I almost let the call go to voicemail, but curiosity took over. Have you thought about what we talked about? She asked, as if she were calling to confirm dinner rather than to talk about a $300,000 house. Her tone was different, less angry than when she left slamming the door, more like she was talking to a client she was trying to convince. Professional, but with an underlying assumption that I had inevitably come around to her point of view. Yes, I've thought about it, I said. The answer is still no. There was a long silence, and I could almost hear the gears turning in her head. She had probably spent the last 2 days with her parents, getting them excited about the idea of becoming homeowners for free, maybe even planning where they would put their furniture. Listen, I said, trying to remain civil. I understand you want to help your parents. After our wedding, we can discuss ways to support them financially, maybe help them with a down payment on their own place, or... No, she cut me off. That's not what I'm asking. I am asking for this specific house for this specific reason, as this specific gesture. Either you understand why it's important to me, or you don't." The way she said it turned my stomach. It wasn't a negotiation anymore. It was an ultimatum disguised as a conversation. "And if I don't do it?" I asked. Another long silence. When she spoke again, her voice was icy. "Then maybe we need to postpone the wedding until you are ready to be the partner I need." There it was, the threat I was expecting. Give me your house, or lose your fiancé. A pretty clear choice. "Let me think about it," I told her. "It's a huge decision. Give me a few days to digest everything." Her tone immediately brightened, like a salesperson who just got a customer to agree to think about the extended warranty. "Really? Oh, Ryan, I knew you would understand once you thought about it seriously. It's going to be so great. My parents will be so grateful, and I will be so proud to have a husband who cares about family like you do." The confidence in her voice spoke volumes. She wasn't hoping I would accept. She expected it, as if the outcome was already decided and I just had to accept the inevitable. After hanging up, I stayed in my kitchen for a moment trying to process what had just happened. My fiancée had just threatened to postpone our wedding if I didn't give my house to her parents. That is when I decided to make my own phone calls. The first was to my friend Sebastian, who has been practicing law for about 8 years. We were in college together, and he has always been straight with me on legal matters. I explained the whole situation to him. My fiancée demanding I gift my rental property to her parents and threatening to postpone the wedding if I refused. "Dude," he said immediately, "Ron, pack your bags and leave right now." At this point, Ryan, this isn't normal behavior. It's gold digger level manipulation. She is literally holding your marriage hostage to extort real estate from you. We talked for about an hour about my options and what I needed to do to protect myself legally. Sebastian explained how marriage affects property ownership, what community property laws look like in our state, and how Nevada might try to claim rights to my assets after the marriage. "Here is what you need to do right away," he told me. "Document everything. Every conversation, every message, every demand she makes. If this goes south, you will need proof that she was trying to manipulate you." "Do you think I should start recording our calls?" "Absolutely. In our state, you have the right to record conversations you participate in. It's not illegal wiretapping if you are one of the parties involved." That afternoon, I called my financial advisor and my accountant. I explained to them that I had doubts about my marriage and wanted to make sure all my assets were properly protected. Both told me the same thing as Sebastian: document everything and do not transfer any assets before the marriage. My accountant was particularly blunt. "Ryan, you work too hard to build your wealth to hand it over to someone who sees you as a bank account. This woman is showing you exactly who she is. Believe her." That evening, I started going through my phone, taking screenshots of all the text conversations Nevada and I had about wedding expenses and her family's financial situation. I also opened a separate bank account and started transferring some of my personal savings there in case things got complicated. The more I thought about it, the more obvious it became that Nevada had been planning this for a while. The timing wasn't an accident. She had waited until the wedding was close enough that I would feel the pressure not to ruin everything. She had probably calculated that I would rather give up the house than face the shame and complications of canceling a wedding. What she hadn't understood is that I would much prefer temporary embarrassment over spending the rest of my married life with someone who saw my assets as her family's retirement plan. Thursday morning, I started making some very discreet calls to wedding vendors. I didn't cancel anything yet. I just asked what their cancellation policy was and how much of the deposit I would lose if we had to stop everything. I wanted to know exactly what this decision was going to cost me financially. It turned out most vendors have pretty standard rules. You lose the deposit, but you don't owe the full amount if you cancel more than 30 days in advance. Some were more flexible than others, but overall, it wouldn't be a financial disaster to cancel. That's when I realized I had already made my decision. I was simply waiting for Nevada to call me back to see if she would dig in her heels on her demands, or perhaps find some reason. Friday morning, right on schedule, my phone rang. "Good morning, my love," she said, her voice all sweet and optimistic. "How are you feeling about all this?" "I'm still thinking," I replied. "It's a huge decision, Nevada. I want to be sure I've considered every aspect." "Of course, I totally understand. Take all the time you need." She paused. "Well, we still need to settle this soon since the wedding is approaching, but I know you'll make the right choice." The confidence in her voice was mind-blowing, as if mentally, she had already moved her parents into my house and was just waiting for me to catch up with her schedule. Actually, I was wondering something, I said. Have you already mentioned this idea to your parents? A small silence. We talked about it. Yes. Well, I wanted to see what they thought before mentioning it to you. And what did they say? They were incredibly touched, Ryan. My mom even cried when I told her you were considering it. She said she had never met anyone as generous as you. That, right at that moment, gave me all the answers I needed. Nevada hadn't presented this as a possibility or an idea she was exploring. She had told her parents it was happening, had probably made them overjoyed and grateful. And now, she was using their emotions as extra pressure on me. That's sweet, I said. It would be a shame to disappoint them if it doesn't happen. It will happen, she replied quickly. I know you, Ryan. You are a good man who cares about family. After that call, I decided to conduct my own investigation. Something about Nevada's confidence bothered me. She seemed way too sure that I would give in, as if she held information I didn't have. The first thing I did was check the security system for my rental property. I have cameras at the front and back of the house, plus one overlooking the driveway. I installed them mostly to monitor tenants and ensure they don't trash the house or throw unauthorized parties. I checked the footage from the previous week just out of routine, and that's when I saw something that made my blood boil. Wednesday afternoon, the day after Nevada left my place slamming the door, her car is seen parking in the driveway of my rental property, and she isn't alone. Two older people get out with her, and I recognize them immediately, her parents. I watched the footage where all three walk around the property for almost an hour. Nevada had keys somehow, probably copies she made when we did a visit together months earlier, supposedly, so I could show her the investment side of my assets. Her mother was taking photos with her phone, while her father was literally measuring rooms with a tape measure. They weren't just looking at the house. They were clearly planning how to use it. At one point, Nevada was pointing at different rooms while her parents nodded, obviously discussing furniture placement or room assignments. Her father spent at least 10 minutes in the garage, probably thinking about where he would store his tools and gardening equipment. It all lasted over an hour, and they were clearly behaving as if it were a house they were going to move into, not a property they were perhaps hoping to receive one day. But it wasn't over. I called the property management company I use for tenant relations and maintenance issues. I asked Sarah, the office manager, if anyone had recently asked questions about the Maple Street house. Actually, yes, she replied. A young woman called last week asking to have an appraisal done. She said she was the owner's fiancée and that you had asked her to handle it for insurance reasons. My stomach nodded. Did she give you a name? Nevada something. She seemed to know details about the property, so I didn't think there was a problem. I shouldn't have helped her. Nevada had gotten my rental property appraised behind my back. She had posed as someone with my authority to obtain financial information on an asset that belonged to me, all without my knowledge or permission. Sarah, I never asked her to do that. Please do not provide any more information about my properties to anyone without checking directly with me. Oh my God, I am so sorry. I shouldn't have authorized the appraisal. It's okay. Just send me a copy of the report when you have it. The appraisal came back at $285,000, which was even higher than I had estimated. So Nevada knew exactly what she was asking of me. Not just a house, but a specific asset worth $285,000, a value higher than what many people earn in 5 years. That evening, as I was still processing all this, my phone vibrated with a message from Nevada. I talked to my parents today. They are so excited about finally having their own place. Mom is already planning her garden. She was using her parents' emotions as leverage, making it even harder for me to say no without disappointing people who, in their heads, were probably already packing their boxes. Then she sent another message that truly revealed her hand. Anyway, it will practically be our house once we are married, right? Community property and all that. This way, my parents can enjoy it while they are still young enough to really appreciate it. There it was, the real plan. Nevada thought marriage would give her legal rights to my assets. She planned to use this house whether I agreed to give it or not. The wedding gift story was just a way to get it transferred before I really understood what community property laws meant, except she was wrong about the law. I had checked with Sebastian. Assets acquired before marriage remain separate property unless they are commingled or put in joint ownership. My rental house would remain mine even after the wedding as long as I didn't add her name to the deed. But Nevada didn't know that. She thought she was being clever, pushing me to voluntarily give up something she believed would become hers anyway. That night, I made my decision. I started making calls, and by Sunday night, I had discreetly canceled about 80% of the wedding preparations. The only ones in the know were the vendors, and I had asked all of them to keep it confidential until I could speak directly to my fiancée. Monday morning, Nevada called for our weekly check-in. Her voice was cheerful, almost giddy. "So, what's your decision?" "I've made my decision," I replied bluntly. "The wedding is off." The silence on the other end of the line was deafening. I could literally hear Nevada breathing while her brain tried to comprehend what I had just said. "What do you mean the wedding is off?" she finally asked, her voice smaller than I had ever heard it. "I am not marrying you. It's over." I didn't expect that silence. Nevada always had something to say, but what followed wasn't a real conversation. It was just her trying to piece back together a future I no longer wanted. She went through every phase of denial like a checklist. First, she said I was just stressed, that this whole house thing had gone to my head. Then she offered to forget the whole thing. Her parents, the appraisal, the entitlement. She said we could start fresh, just the two of us. She didn't understand that the problem hadn't just happened. It had been revealed. When that didn't work, she exploded. A total crisis, screaming that I was an ingrate, that I would never find someone who would love me like her, that this was all a huge exaggeration. I let her vent her anger. Then finally, I spoke. "You don't love me, Nevada. You love what I could give you, and you got caught counting your chickens before they hatched." I could almost hear her desperately searching for solid ground. She tried to say she was just enthusiastic, that she wanted to show her parents how generous I was going to be, that it wasn't supposed to happen behind my back, but it did. She had my property appraised. She showed them the house as if she were already the owner. She made calls impersonating someone she wasn't, and she didn't expect me to have security cameras or a management company that logged every request. The fake sob started when she realized I wouldn't yield. She apologized. Well, she used the word sorry, but only once she was cornered, not because she meant it. "I thought we were building something real," she said. 3 years thrown in the trash like that." "No," I replied. 3 years showed me who you really are when you think you are above consequences." That's the last real thing I said before hanging up. I told her to come get whatever she still had at my place before the end of the week, and that after that, I never wanted to hear from her again. Then I hung up, and just like that, with a simple click, the future she had imagined without me collapsed. Not with an argument, not with a last plea, just with a click. In less than an hour, my phone was blowing up with calls and messages from Nevada, her parents, her sister, and even some of her friends. I ignored everything and launched phase 2 of my plan. I called my parents first, then my sister and close friends. I explained exactly what had happened before Nevada could tell her version. I sent them screenshots of her messages saying the house was practically ours anyway, as well as copies of the appraisal request made without my permission. My mother's reaction was perfect. "Oh honey, you dodged a bullet. That girl had trouble written all over her from the start. You noticed?" "Yes." She had that look in her eyes whenever she talked about your business or your assets, like she was already spending money that wasn't hers. My sister was even more direct. "Thank God you realized it before the wedding. Can you imagine dealing with someone like that during a divorce?" Then, I called Sebastian and asked him to draft a cease and desist letter. If Nevada tried to smear my reputation or spread lies about the reason for the wedding cancellation, I wanted legal protection ready to go. The letter was essentially a warning. I had documented proof of her attempts to manipulate me into transferring real estate, as well as recordings of our conversations regarding her demands about the house. If she tried to defame me or claim I had been abusive or controlling, I would make everything public and let people judge for themselves. Sebastian also helped me change the locks on both my properties and update all my financial accounts to remove any access Nevada had. She had never been officially added to anything, but I wanted to make sure there were no loopholes she could exploit. Tuesday evening, I saw them on the camera feed before she even rang the bell. Nevada and her sister Michelle, standing on my doorstep. Like a guilt trip welcoming committee. Nevada looked destroyed. I left them there a minute before opening the door. She wasted no time. She asked for 5 minutes. She said she just wanted to talk. Her voice broke at the end as if she had rehearsed it but couldn't keep her act together anymore. I told her frankly that there was nothing left to discuss. Her actions had already said everything. She tried to downplay the situation, said she got carried away, blamed wedding stress, admitted she pushed too far, and that it wasn't worth throwing away everything we had built. Michelle chimed in, playing the compassion card. Nevada hasn't stopped crying since your call. She loves you, Ryan. She is sorry, she really is. But remorse after getting caught is not the same as integrity. I reminded both of them that being sorry doesn't undo what was done. It doesn't erase what someone reveals about themselves when they think they are untouchable. Nevada's voice broke again, and this time, I think the tears were real. I was just trying to do something meaningful, she said, her voice cracking mid-sentence. For my parents, for us. I thought if we started our marriage with something generous, big, it would bring everyone closer. Of course, with my property, my money, and my name on the deeds, while her parents picked out curtains as if the house already belonged to them. She claimed she would have done the same for my parents if the roles were reversed. I told her they weren't and never would be because she didn't have a six-figure asset to dangle under someone's nose. Generosity was never the real subject. Access was. Then Michelle's tone changed, becoming sharp and defensive. She said maybe Nevada was better off this way, that a man who chooses money over love wasn't worth marrying anyway. I didn't answer. I simply went back inside for a moment, then came back with a cardboard box containing everything Nevada had left at my place over the years and handed it to her without a word. She took the box, but she didn't leave. She stared at me as if waiting for a sign that I had changed my mind. Instead, she played her last card, bitterness. I hope you're happy, she mumbled. I hope your precious houses keep you warm at night. They will, I replied, unlike a woman who treats me like a wallet with a pulse. She turned around and left. Michelle followed her, shooting me a glare as if I had kicked a puppy. I closed the door, locked it, and deleted her access to the smart lock. The next morning, I received a call from her parents. I shouldn't have answered, but part of me wanted to know what version of the story they were going to spin. Her father attacked immediately. No hello, just annoyance. He said I was ridiculous, that it was just a house I didn't even live in. He asked if I was really that selfish. I remained calm. I explained once again that it was my house, bought with my money, and that their daughter had tried to give it away without my permission, then lied about it. Her mother spoke up in the background, saying everything was done out of love, that they thought I truly cared about Nevada's happiness. I told them I did. That is exactly why I wasn't marrying her, because a person like Nevada, who needs to control and appropriate everything around her, would never be happy with someone she can't manipulate. They didn't like that. Her father lost his temper, said I would regret it, that I would never find anyone better. Maybe not, I replied, but at least I won't have to worry about someone trying to steal what belongs to me. They hung up. No follow-up, no apologies, just a silent confirmation that leaving was the smartest decision I had made in years. Over the following weeks, Nevada tried a few more approaches, mutual friends trying to play mediator, a long email explaining her side of the story, even a message on LinkedIn suggesting we handle this professionally. I ignored everything. Sebastian sent the cease and desist letter when she started posting vague messages on social media about discovering who people really are and how some of them are just users. The letter worked. She went quiet after that. 6 months later, I heard through a mutual friend that Nevada had moved back in with her parents, still in that same rental apartment, still complaining about not being able to afford a house. Meanwhile, my rental property continues to generate $1,800 a month. My business is doing better than ever, and I no longer have to worry about someone trying to manipulate me into giving away the work of a lifetime. Comment. Thank you for sharing this time with me today. Setting boundaries isn't about pushing people away. It's about honoring the respect you have for yourself and the life you've built. Sometimes the kindest thing you can do is to choose yourself, even when it's the hardest decision. You are the ultimate guardian of your own peace and well-being. Choosing your peace over someone else's chaos is a profound act of strength. Walking away from what isn't right for you makes room for what is. Always listen to that quiet inner voice that tells you when something feels off. Trust it, because it's protecting your future. Please take good care of yourselves. If you like the stories, don't forget to leave a comment and support the channel by subscribing. See you in the upcoming stories.